Alright everyone, now it's time to talk about a delusional leftoid take. Of course, with the US economy fundamentally crippled, we're probably already in a recession, you've got above 9% inflation, you have crime skyrocketing, etc., etc. And with Biden's approval now hovering in the mid-30s, very bad place to be at this point in your presidency. Only Truman did it worse. The left is going to lose a slew of House seats in the upcoming midterms. I think there is a fundamentally 0% chance, barring an absolute miracle, that they maintain the House, and I would expect the Republicans to hold it by a larger majority than the Dems currently have it. This is because I understand polling. Link in the description though, archived of course. This is from Roll Call, which is a far-left canard rag, and there's some lie-by structure going on here. I will be talking about this, by the way, more in depth in the live stream that I'll do later, of course with our normal news roundup for the day. Ratings show GOP taking House control, but no red wave yet. At this point, Democratic candidates overperforming Biden. Well, I mean, that itself is misleading now, isn't it? Joe Biden is so far deep underwater that only one other modern president has ever had approval polling lower at this point in their first term. He's eclipsed Carter. He's eclipsed Trump. He's eclipsed Obama. He's having some problems. There's almost a 20-point gap there. Overperforming Biden could mean you're 10 points behind your opponent. Now, this is by Nathan L. Gonzalez, working with Roll Call, former CNN analyst, which shows you why CNN is so inaccurate. And he actually weighed in when I retweeted this piece. And I pointed out, hey, look, a lie-by structure. Let's analyze this. The tweet was misleading. It was just reiterating the title of the article. He then jumped down my throat and said, well, you know, I didn't write the tweet. I wrote the article. I'm like, well, yeah, okay, but the tweet's not the only misleading part. The structure of the article is too. Analysis. If the election were held today, it looks as if Republicans would gain 7 House seats, according to Inside Elections individual race ratings. While that would be enough for a majority, it certainly wouldn't qualify as a red wave. Now, as I pointed out, this is a lie-by structure. This is not the sum and substance of most of the entire article. It's a reasonably long article. But the first couple of paragraphs and the title tell an entirely different story from most of the rest of the bulk of the article. And here's the thing. Half of the people read the tweet and didn't even click the article. He apparently believed that I hadn't read the article either. I assure you, I read the entire thing. A significant proportion of those that opened your article, Nathan, only read that first paragraph. They digested what they read, and then they ignored the rest, because the average person is low info and or doesn't have the time to read full-throated political articles. Hell, the average person doesn't even watch my entire video. When I post one up, it's 10 minutes long. A lot of people don't have 10 minutes. They're on break or something like that. They've got 5 minutes, so they watch half of the video. Still, that doesn't mean Democrats can rest easy and GOP gains are likely to be higher. The problem is 90% of people didn't even read that second line. And then you get into it, and I don't know what the hell kind of metric they're using at individual race ratings for inside elections. It is far out of whack of what I'm seeing on RCP. You know, the best aggregate, super news aggregator as well as poll aggregator. It has literally everything. Don't bother with Nate Silver. Certainly don't bother with this horseshit. You're going to be like Cenk Uygur on election night, and you're going to say, well, the Republicans will take the House, but it won't be that big a majority. Don't worry, there's plenty of neocons there that'll throw conservatism under the bus, so we're not too worried. You're likely to see, at my best estimate, 25 to 30 seats, minimum. And that's based on the RCP aggregate, which is clearly superior. If you tally all the races rated as solid Republican, likely Republican, lean Republican, and tilt Republican, and split the 18 toss-up races evenly, Republicans would have 221 seats. That would be a net gain of 7 seats. They need a net gain of only 4 for the majority. The Dems have a razor-thin margin there. Of course, Republicans wouldn't turn that down, but it would be a minuscule gain and massive disappointment for the GOP because the expectations and current projections are high. Over the past century, this is important here, the president's party has lost an average of 30 House seats in midterm elections. Midterm elections are typically performance reviews on the sitting president. If that is true, and you're using 538 again, well, why don't you use RCP? You mention it down below. You'd be crazy to suspect that this would be the outcome. Again, though, the average person, especially someone that subscribes to Roll Call and watches their shit, they're going to be leaning left. They want the Democrats to win. You've effectively given them false confidence more than anything else, and the Dems are very good at this. They'll say, don't worry, we got this in the bag. 2016 election with Hillary Clinton. Nah, don't worry. New York Times says there's a 99% chance that she wins. It was epic watching that little ticker that they retired in 2020 for a reason very slowly go in the other direction all night. And then, of course, everyone went crazy. Clinton guzzled a bottle of Chardonnay and was so wasted she couldn't even come out and concede till the next day. Podesta did not get dragged out on stage to tell people to get a night's rest because she was sober. Just to be clear. In fact, here's the real skinny here. We'll close out this article so I can actually see my glorious self, my unwashed self. I need a good scrubby shower later because I had a mini heat wave and you got a baby. Sometimes you're too tired to fucking shower. So the last thing on my priority list, you shouldn't shower every day anyway because it's bad for your hair. Look at this. Hasn't been washed in a while. Nice and shiny and wavy. Here's the truth. Use RCP and then look at the races that they say lean, safe, toss-up. The Republicans would get more than 7 seats as a majority, even if you only counted the seats that are heavily favored towards them. It'd still be about 12 seats. Of the toss-ups, in an even-handed race, you would expect them to take roughly half of them. But as you pointed out so astutely, this was a good part in your article, oftentimes in the midterms, especially with House races especially, it's a referendum on the president, at least in part. It would be extremely unlikely that the Republicans don't gain a net 25 to 30 seats minimum. And that's the minimum. It could be much higher. I think there will be a turnout differential for several reasons. Democrats have failed to capitalize upon Roe. That is, the Democrats are mad as hell about the abortion issue, although in some states the issue has already been settled by state action. They might be angry, though, but what are they criticizing not just Biden, but the Democrats in total for? Inaction. Not doing anything about it. Now, I realize the Democrats don't have the votes to do much of anything, and any federal level attempt would fall flat constitutionally. But the leftoid Democrats don't understand this. They're too stupid to understand civics. They think that Biden can just step in, sign an executive order, and make abortion legal up till 9 months nationwide with no restrictions. They genuinely believe things like this. They fault him, and they fault the congressional Democrats for not leaning on him on this issue. The other part is guns. The Republicans and Democrats have been equally energized in the wake of Bruin. You see a slurry, this is another thing I'll be covering later, an absolute tidal wave of anti-gun legislation attempts, Boebert's leading the charge in part on that, and constitutional challenges to existing gun control. On the flip side, you also see a slurry of blue state actions to try to codify more gun control, pig-in-a-poke politics style, much of which will be tossed out in federal courts in the wake of Bruin. But both sides have been energized by this. And then you have one other problem for the Democrats. In most elections in recent history, the Democrats have had a registration advantage. The Republicans currently outnumber Democrats for the first time in quite some time in the United States, and it's not by an inconsiderable margin. In some states, the swing is larger. Florida is no longer a swing state. Florida, in my opinion, is now a lean red state. Texas was moving towards swing state status. That's gone and tacked in the other direction. The fact that Beto O'Rourke is a weak candidate is not the only reason why he's running 6-7 points behind Abbott in the average poll, and by the way, will not win. If you look at a lot of the House races, they're in areas that have moved much more Republican because it's most of the country. Most of those districts have moved Republican. That doesn't make them all on the chopping block. I would today favor the GOP to take roughly 3/5 of the toss-up races. So instead of gaining an extra 20 seats there, they're gaining 25-30 on top of the seats that already lean in their direction but aren't counted as fully safe. This is a red wave. I would say the most likely outcome is 40 seats. Again, pending several months of additional economic data and other things, you could have anything could happen tomorrow. Biden could croak. Kamala becomes president. This shakes everything up. Major scandal in the GOP, major scandal among Dems. J6 falls flat, charges aren't referred, which is likely. That will shake things up. Additional SCOTUS actions ahead of the midterms. Additional legislative action. A war could break out. Civil war, anything under the sun. COVID mutates, starts killing 20% of the people that get it, and all hell breaks loose. There are a million variables, and we still have months until the midterms. But assuming a relative stability, that is, the economy doesn't get measurably better or worse, you have wars and rumors of wars, but no breakout of additional war. You have high crime, but it levels off. So, high crime in big cities slowly ebbing into the suburbs, but it doesn't go further. If everything remains roughly the same, as it is most likely to do on most metrics, I would expect the Republicans to take many more than 7 seats. I think that is a massive underestimation of the current political climate. I could be wrong. It's not impossible. But literally all statistics and political history aligns with the belief that they'll do far better than that. Now, it depends on which candidates, of course, take those positions, whether it matters or not. You get a 30-seat majority in the House, but a lot of them are neocons. They'll just work with the Democrats on more gun control anyway, and then it'll be up to the courts to save our ass, just like with the Bruin decision. But a lot of them are MAGA Republicans, and most of them are favored to win. Some of them have knocked off neocon long-term incumbents. That's the other side of this story that's not told, which is the transformation of the Republican Party into a populist and liberty-loving movement, which is a far cry from its moralistic heyday 10 years ago, and the Democrats slowly devolving into a party of the champagne socialist super rich and idpol. That's basically all they've got. They couldn't even capitalize on Roe, for Christ's sake. That was unexpected. I was wrong in that particular prediction for months, and willingly admit it. I find it astonishing that they weren't able to capitalize on probably the biggest hot-button issue of the decade so far. They failed. And so that's why they'll lose. That's about all. Peace out.